Hello, good evening. Good evening. I'm very happy to host a new edition of FAR Talks. I think it's edition 9. The next one I think will be next year, actually, hopefully. And today we are going to discuss about immersive spaces and their impact on the art scene with 3 guests. Unfortunately, Crystal Bauer will not be able to be with us today because her flight was delayed and she's now flying between some 2 towns. So here with me, it's Ezra Özkan from Turkey, from Istanbul. She's the curator of the Museum of Media Art, and I have also Fred Alic, who is the founder of Ouch, which is a company which produces content for immersive spaces, and they have a huge portfolio actually working with art, science, technologies, and it's amazing to see how many prizes they have on the list. I was not able to count them. I think there are more than 20 or 30. And it's also Alex Czetwertyński, Czetwertyński. Thank you, Polish guys, for exercising our tongues and full mouth control. It's very nice to do it from time to time. And Alex, it's curating Electric Castle new media scene, and he is also an artist, and he writes very beautifully on new media. I have a thing, I will quote him later on and ask him what if he still has this opinion. And he curates projects internationally, and he has also an amazing portfolio. So for the beginning, I would like to ask each of you to give us a little bit of background on where you are coming from and your work as curators or artists, so we can get an idea, and of course focusing as much as possible on works which are connected with our talk on immersive spaces. And before starting, I would want to quote an article which appeared, I think, in December last year, and it's by Anna Wiener in New Yorker, and she was writing about the rise of immersive art. And basically, she observed that in the last 2 years, all around the globe, of course, very much starting from Singapore and Tokyo, but nowadays in a lot of countries and a lot of towns, we have those huge immersive spaces, sometimes playing original content, interactive original content, sometimes working on franchises and working with works done by artists, and it's really a very important topic in nowadays. And I think it's very important also for how we perceive collective experiences in the art scene, and that's why we got the idea to talk with you about this. So please, Ezra. You want me to run one of your materials or start the presentation?
Start presentation.
Okay.
Hi again, my name is Esra. I'm from Turkey. I would like to introduce myself actually firstly. I'm an artistic director of Digital Art Festival in Istanbul. I'm a curator of the Samsung Turkey, and I'm a curator and the director of the X Media Art Museum. And first of all, I would like to give information about the Turkish digital art scene, what we did or what we are doing for the digital art, and then I would like to explain to our museum. And yeah, We have many festivals and fairs in Istanbul. And first of all, I would like to introduce the Istanbul Delights. I have a video. Istanbul Delights Festival at 2002 exhibited 50 arts installation by 54 artists. I have a video actually. Istanbul Delights. Yes. The festival, it was a big festival. It has been reported in the international press and also has received over 1 million views on the social media. It was a huge festival. The other exhibition is Bank Prix, and 2000. I have a video also. 2017 and 2019, I created and imagined Bank Prix. Bank Prix is a support to young artist program, and the program consists of mentorship, support, talks, and the exhibition. And we supported many young Turkish and international artists in Turkey. Thank you. It's okay. We focused on the digital subtitles, not just the new media, also bio art and the kinetic art and the pixel art and the algorithm arts. We're focused on the different digital art subtitles. And the other organization is Istanbul Delight Festival, Istanbul Digital Art Festival. It's a very big organization again. Also, I have a video. This year we made TRT World. TRT World.
This?
Yeah.
This one?
Yes, this
Okay.
one.
It used to be a metal factory, but now the historic Fishakane in Istanbul is hosting a digital art festival. And as a first in the region, one of its curators is an AI. Her name is Avent, which is Persian for first. The developers created an algorithm that allowed her to pick a theme and artists for the exhibition. After doing her research, Avent finally asked this question: is the world's only sustainable energy human creativity? And that's the theme of the show.
Every year we host more than 20 artists in the Istanbul, and also artists come from international and foreign professionals, and young artists and local artists. She's a art curator. I have to work with her every year, and this year we use an OpenAI GPT-3, and it's hard for me actually, because I wrote something for the on the algorithm and then answer my questions, but sometimes it's very complicated and I can understand the algorithm. Sometimes she didn't answer me, and yeah, it's very different journey. And yes, thank you. And yeah, I would like to give information. X-Media Art Museum. X-Media Art Museum, Turkey's first digital art and a new media museum. Continue to dance. And then, yeah. the museum founded by Dastas. Dastas is a cultural center, theater center, and also music and the huge complex. And downstairs, please. Yes, here is the Dastas. And yeah, X Media Art Museum brings together original productions at the combination of technology, science, arts, and
Is it a private museum?
Yeah, it's a
so
private
it's a
museum.
private financed museum.
Yes, yes. We have a sponsorships. Also, we have three founders. One of the Ferdi. He is a co-founder of the museum, and also Muzaffer Yıldırım and Mert Fırat funded with the museum. And the museum, we collaborate different stakeholders actually, and the creative industries, and the digital arts and the digital professions we are collaborated with, and then we are improve the digital art. And originally it's an immersive space, 750 square meter, and also we have a 28 projection. We have the surround sound system. Also we have a very high technology. And the idea is the X. Eylül and Ferdi created the meaning of the X, and the X is it's a cross, and the versus the left brain and the right brain. Maybe you
The
can.
corpus callosum.
Yeah. Yes, and.
Definitely. I mean, the right side and left side. Right side and left side is this is the two contrast side of the brain. This numeric base and artistic base, right? So when we think about that identity together with the Eylül, we want to put that kind of the combination, because also our creations about math and algorithm, so which is the very part of that artistic side. So that's why it's combined an intersection to the two different words in a one X. That was the idea. You can keep continuing. Yeah.
Thank you. And yes, what we are doing, actually we have many different parts. First part is cultural policy. We are writing to the new cultural policy of the digital art, and how museums transform the digital. And also I wrote a gender equality policy, creative industry, and the arts and the culture sector. And we wrote an Utur Erhat. She's a professor at Bill University. We wrote the general conceptual idea about the gender issues for the digital art, because the digital art ecosystem is very masculine. So we wrote and
I wouldn't say masculine, but there are a lot of males working there.
yes, but NFT changed something actually. But continue to the other questions. And the other one is conservation. It's very highlight topic. Museums have focus on conservation for the cultural heritage for the next generation. And we are thinking about technology and the digital art conservation because we don't know how we can exhibit the artworks after later the 20 or the 50 years. So we have to write to conservation of the digital art, and we are thinking about this topic, and we are research and about the main idea. And the academy covers workshops, training and research projects, and the studies which is local and the professional artists and the academicians. And we will open our academy and following 4 months. And the next year, actually. Also, creative industry is very important for us, because we have to work to the theater and the dance and the music ecosystem to improve the all of the ecosystem. And so we are focused on the immersive theater at the Dastas and also X Media Art Museum. And we are discover the immersive dance, how can be improve the dance ecosystem. And the other one is also experience and the visitors' experience, audience's experience. And because experience is our main job for the immersive spaces. And yeah, I think, yes. Our first exhibition, Arch, by Arch, Leonardo da Vinci exhibition, I have a video also. We opened our doors on January. It's very new museum, actually. Leonardo, Turkey's first digital art museum. Yeah. We hosted more and more visitors until six months. And also our new exhibition is Sezen Aksu. And also we have a video. Sezen Aksu is a Turkish singer. And we produced storytelling and the film. Yeah. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have a limited time. So
Okay.
it's okay.
So, well,
turn.
it's your turn.
Okay,
You have
thank you.
the presentation. So we've already seen a lot from your work, but you are mostly running like the company or working on the content still, or?
Actually, it's a little bit the complicated story, but I can explain and give too much more deeply information about the studio. Everything starting with 12 years ago. We graduated the visual communication design department from the Bilgi University. Yeah, thank you so much. And then during the second year of the college, we decided to build the Ouch as a studio. But at that time, just we trying to understand the boundaries of the art with the technology, art and science. And during our education was so visionary. I mean, we had access to too many institutes like Ars Electronica or the museum around the world. So we had a chance to work with the very famous professors, and we have a chance get to connect to that kind of the visionary professors. And during our education, we learned too many different type of the fields like a photography, direction, algorithm, designing Arduinos, architectural design, modeling, animation, coding. everything. So
And this program was in Istanbul?
yeah, Istanbul.
Okay.
Yeah, Istanbul University. And one of the big professors, Ihsan Derman, Esen Karol, and also we learned the typography and design principles with the art history. This is the perfect combination about every audiovisual material in the art history. So that's why the vision coming from the education. And then it was very nice campus because we had a chance living the same campus with the architecture and engineers. So during the day, the homeworks, for example, Design 101, they created the parametric, the art installation on the garden, and at nights we were stolen the projectors of the school and hacking to the their homeworks as a video mapping. 12 years ago. So that's why it's so underground life, campus life for us. But the 12 years ago, we were making all that projects for nothing. A couple of nerdy guys doing something cool, right? But after this 8 years ago or 7 years ago, it becomes a kind of the business around the world. So that's why it was very game-changing attitudes, the integration, the science inside of the art, with the technology, with the high-level quality animation also. By the way, the presentation starting with that quiet, because that quiet exactly describing our vision for last 12 years. The most beautiful thing we can experience is the mysteries. It is the source of all true art and all science from Einstein. By the way, I can do that. So the last 12 years, we won a couple of awards, like a Red Dot Design Award, ediția Award, German Design Award, International Design Award, Asia Design Award from Los Angeles, New York, Germany, and Seoul, almost every continent. All that awards are so important because this is the proof of your art quality. We really care about that. For sure, by the way, approximately we created 52 art pieces around the world for 52 cities and countries, almost every continent. Yeah. Okay. So, last 12 years, we collaborated with different type of the festivals around the world. Okay. Let's watch. It's okay. It's better. So the last 12 years, we already collaborate with the different type of the light festivals, institutes, respectful science museums like Art Science Museum Singapore, SAT Montreal, California Science, Miami Science. Also the festivals, Coachella Festival, Melbourne Light Festival, Barcelona Light Festival, Signal Light Festival, and also we collaborate with the Mori Museum. So we had a chance to work with the different type of the also governments, like a Chinese government or Dubai government. Basically, we try and integrate art, science, and technology inside of the public spaces. The team consists of very talented from AI artists, engineers, academicians, coders, designers, and all that people seeing one vision for making the hybrid public arts around the world. We used almost every type of the audio-visual technologies around the world, like the projectors, LED screens, holograms, kinetic sculptures. But the last 10 years, we really strictly use the data and AI. Maybe we already used more than 100 different type of the data sets around the world. Sometimes that data coming from the space, sometimes coming from the underground or environment or climate change. But all that cold numbers become a kind of the poetic, the data paintings with the different type of the architectural surfaces. From the micro and macro scale, we according to our practice, we created a different type of the custom 3D data sculptures also, using to the audiovisual technologies. But the thing is that from the beginning to end, all that art pieces has a story, an idea. I mean, we are not technology-based studio, actually, we are idea-based. It means the idea comes first, then after that we're trying to make it happen, that idea, with the existing technology. But generally we had to hack into the technology, or we had to reinvent the technology. Our main behavior using the data as a paint and algorithm as a brush. So it means we have a same mindset like a 500 years ago painters, like a Van Gogh or Leonardo. But our tools are very different. And canvas. Our canvas is generally the architectural spaces. So we're trying to discovering to the intersection of the multidimensional worlds as a hybrid environment, and is that redefined the future of the art for us. Our main topic is immersive experiences, so that's why I try to collect a couple of from our works about the immersive experiences. For example, this one is the 2018. We created world's biggest AI exhibition in Paris. It was the first digital museum in the Paris. We used the 146 projectors in one giant hall, like a 3,500 square meter. And according to that art piece, we collected data from the famous scientist book, like Einstein, Hawking, Galileo book. And then we created a kind of digital library made by 20 million lines books. According to our project, by the way, every project starting with the big question in our studio. For this project, can we create super scientist consciousness by using machine learning and AI algorithm? So we're trying to answer to that question with the experiential techniques. When we created to that 20 million lines books made by PDF files, we created our own AI algorithm made by Python coding. That algorithm reading to entire 20 million lines books at 30 times. Then after that become as a scientist and starting to writing the own book. So we took all that output from the AI and we created that cinematic immersive experience. That was the 3 chapters. The chapter 1 about our data archive, so people could experience the entire our data archive. The second part about how AI can understand all that books. And third part, the final output from the AI. It looks like actually inside of hanging around inside of the machine brain. And just the strictly artistic decisions about the final output, just black and white. So during that experience, people when enter that space, the people could experience Klimt brush and paints. And after the 15 minutes, the people could experience the poetic AI, which is just black and white. So there is a chance, there is an opportunity for the audience. People could experience history of art and future of art in the same canvas as a cinematic dark experience. For sure, when we created that kind of the underground projects, you don't have any idea what's the next. For the poetic AI, then after that we got the invitation from the Paramount Pictures. And then the Mission Impossible. They want to use the poetic AI at the movie. So the last year they built a kind of the immersive bar in London, Paramount Pictures Studios. I was there as a 2-week around. And according to that idea, the entire bar covering with the poetic AI and Tom Cruise fighting front of the AI art piece. That was a very interesting experience for us, working with the more than 200 people for making happen to that scene. You will experience next year, next summer in the theater. By the way, this is the first time in the cinema history the integrate the new media art inside of the movie.
It was also, I think,
AI.
Yeah, with AI, but it was also the Van Gogh exhibition, I think, in one of Netflix series, which actually seems like it brought a lot of attention to immersive spaces. I don't know.
I think this is the future of the art.
But AI, I think I'm
AI first
definitely
time,
for
yeah.
it.
I think the interesting thing for the if you are thinking about immersive experience technologies, for example, which technology is the best in the world for the cinema? IMAX, right? But even for IMAX, you have to go and you have to sit and you have to watch the just square. But immersive experiences are so different. Everywhere is a screen, and you can hang it around inside of that immersive experiences. I think this is the next level of the cinematic attitude.
Yeah, somehow, if we think about, I think a lot about the change from the white cube to the digital cube, with the white cube focusing on a specific artwork, and now with the immersive spaces, it's like everything becomes like a canvas, and you can also interact.
Exactly, this is the definition of the, by the way, immersive keyword. By the way, I almost finished. We opened the around the world. For just here, we opened the 6 different places, immersive experience places around the world. For example, this one is the Australia, and then the Seoul, Berlin, Taiwan, New York. This is the very hot timing for the immersive experience around the world. By the way, you don't have to use the exist places as a renovated places. For example, for the Australia, we built the 1,000 square meter around the immersive experience in the city center. This is the perfection of the production, by the way. Right side is the production, left side is the final output. It was amazing opportunity, you know, the putting to the pure, the perfect immersive experience without any architectural disturbing. Because according to if you are using to the exist places, you have to limited decisions as an artist.
It was a feast for the senses, really. Holy cow, that was an experience. Anyway, you look just filled with sound and light, and it just, yeah.
We loved it. We had a great time, didn't we? Really loved the colours
And then I will jump to the last pages. This one is for example, in the Seoul, we opened the another giant immersive experience, for sure AI art related. But I think this is my last page. We just opened 2 months ago in Brooklyn. This is another permanent space. For this artwork, that challenge about can we use the AAG brainwaves data for making the immersive data painting in real time with the 16 pixel rendering. So it's never done before, and every show, by the way, live and unique, because we also integrated the people heartbeats data in real time. So it's perfect combination between heart and brain, and the real-time generated 16 pixel data painting in Brooklyn. It's open.
And how many people do you monitor at the same time?
Endlessly.
So you can monitor like all the guys in the exhibition.
We are giving to the very special device for tracking to the heartbeat data of the audience, and also one device for the musician. There is a script door, an opening, and musician making live performance. So the first chapter, the people can observe the musician feelings in real time in that huge immersive experience. The second chapter, the audience starting with their heartbeats data. So it's combining 2 data painting in real time into the immersive experience.
And generally, one of those experiences, like how long are they? Like how like
Endlessly.
I mean, like for a visitor, how much time do they generally spend?
There is a 5 chapter. The chapter 1 pre-render version. It's the 20 minutes, 25 minutes around pre-render, and then the 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, the live generated for each show. It's so important, you know, for the general immersive experiences, always pre-render, and there is no live musician or something like that. So that's the first time, and the heart of the New York, you can experience for the next 6 months. I'm going to show my last 1 minute video. Then after that, I will give to the Alex. Sorry about that.
And
Thank
I
you.
think in the immersive space here, they're still running like one of your works. Is it? In the immersive space
Yeah,
here,
yeah, we
you
try.
can see one of their works.
AI
So-
Leonardo. We give to the 15 minutes content to the radar. By the way, thank you so much for the radar. They gave the huge effort to making happen. I am so appreciate that. Thank you so much again for invitation.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming. It's amazing. It's mesmerizing, your work. We are so thrilled to have you. So, Alex, would you want to go with your presentation or the film or?
Yeah, let's just start with the video. If you could show me the, yeah. The reel? Yeah. So maybe we
You
can
should know that he is a philosopher.
As you can see in my reel, it's very obvious. Yeah, maybe we can switch to the presentation. But yeah, this is a sample of work. This reel was done in 2020, and it's kind of mixes projects that are either just animations, but usually all of my work has some spatial integration. So most of these things, even if you see them now on this kind of screen, were somehow integrated in environments. And that's the way that I tend to work. And I've been doing this kind of sort of spatial integration of media for about 15 years. And through that, I encountered a lot of other artists working in the similar field as I. And so I think the reason why I'm here today, and by the way, thank you very much for inviting me, is to speak more about what I did. I think we just need to go to the next slide. So what I've been doing more as a curator, so sort of because of the work that I was doing, I met a lot of other artists, and then I started working with different institutions to showcase this kind of work that we call maybe it's an unfortunate word, but it's called new media. You know, new media doesn't really mean much. Taking a picture with your phone and manipulating in Photoshop could technically be called new media. And it's also a very old term, but anyways, that's a different topic. But the purpose of showing this work is to sort of present works that require physical space, that require large environments, that require the presence of an audience to sort of come to life. So these are these kinds of projects. I've done these for festivals. I worked with Google for 3 years. We created something called the Museum of Computational Art. Electric Castle, which some of you might know, in Cluj. Undercurrent, this was a slightly different project where I was more like hired as a creative director with an agency to bring 11 musicians from like Grimes to Actress, Mount Kimby. So it was like a big mix of different types of talents and creating environments for them that expressed their particular concerns around climate change. So there were essentially 11 experiences that each one touched on an issue regarding climate change. And then this is an example of a show that I did for a more classic art institution, and I called it That's Not It. I called it That's Not It because if you're familiar with this expression in English, people tend to say that's not it when they're trying to remember something, like they have a word or a name that's somewhere in their mind and they can't really put their finger on it. And then somebody says, oh, why did you call it that? And I say, no, that's not it. So it was called that because the diversity of pieces that were shown in this show, which was a mix of like sound art, sculpture, projection, and all these things that use technology in some way or another are really difficult to call something, right? So for years and years and years, we've had these media-driven disciplines in arts, photography, sculpture, painting, but now that doesn't really exist anymore. People tend to bundle everything that is done with technology in some shape or form in this like term, new media, or, and then it gets very specific, like AI art or stuff like that. So anyways, that was the sort of the question I was asking, and I was hoping to interrogate the audience about this question. And so it sort of led me to think a lot about what exactly are we talking about when we call these things arts? Because in my opinion, there's a huge amount of unnecessary calling of things art, right? There's a lot of things can very happily be design. It's great. Design is amazing. It's important. We need it. We have graphic designers, motion designers. I think one of the things that we saw a lot with NFTs, when NFTs came out, for those of you who are familiar with what happened in the last couple of years, there were people who were putting graphic design and calling it crypto art. It doesn't mean anything anymore, So I think there needs to be some kind of baseline for what we call art, and I particularly like this definition by Nicolas Bourriaud. For those of you who are not familiar with him, he's one of the guys who created the Palais de Tokyo in Paris, a very sort of important art institution, and he wrote a book in 2009, I think, called Relational Aesthetics, which is a very influential book, and so he says, a work of art is a combination between formal mastery, so obviously skills, right? You have to be able to do something, but it doesn't mean you have to be able to create something with your hands. It also means you might be able to create a powerful idea. The capacity of the artist to encode information and sensations in matter or in time. So what that means is that you are essentially, the artist is a little bit acting like a vessel, right? There's stuff coming through the artist and it's appearing in the work. And then to bring forth the mental challenges of the period they are in. So essentially the hope is that if you encounter a work of art, you find these things and you understand something about a time. And if you think about it, the powerful works of art that we know of today that have endured through time are the works of art that contain these three components. The works of art that are purely obsessed with a very particular subtopic of our current time will be very interesting for 6 months. But then in 5-10 years, they will be like artifacts of the past, just like we find an old, arrow in an archaeological dig. So that's kind of my perspective on that. And I think there's another important thing to talk about is that the new media space, as much as I believe that there is amazing art to be found, I think that there is a critical conflict that goes on, a sort of a battle between two things which are art and spectacle. So I think spectacle is essentially what you would imagine is what you would see like in something that people would just take pictures of in social media and post. You know, that's spectacle. It's something that it's interesting for 10 minutes, and then you go home and you watch Netflix and you forgot about it. So the idea is that new media, because it relies a lot on technology, is often trying to create this like wow factor. You know, it's like people will often tell you like, I used 16 million pixels to make this thing, and in the end it's like almost that's the important part about the work, but that doesn't really matter so much because in the end that's the spectacle part. So, you know, this is an example that I sort of, it's a very artificial example, and it's a little bit, I'm sorry for being a little critical about this stuff, but it always makes me laugh that, you know, now we have these things like the Museum of Ice Cream, right? And they use this term museum. And on the other hand, you have comparing it to an artist who uses technology extremely well, Raphael Lozano-Hemmer. He does a piece where he is making poetry appear in fog, in a sort of a field of water. And then on the other hand, you have the Museum of Ice Cream. And these things, because of the way that our vocabulary works today, we're able to use the word museum for something that is more like entertainment. You know, it's fun to go with your kids to the Museum of Ice Cream, and I think that's great. But I think in a sense, it sort of contributes to this confusion around what is exactly, what is art, you know, today. So I just want to play a video that explores a little bit the way that I felt personally new media art can be presented and can reach audiences in interesting ways. This is a video that was done in 2015 for the Day for Night Festival, which is the one that I used to work for. Maybe we can play the version that's on the computer so it'll be full screen. Or, yeah, we can play it here, it's fine. Yeah, there you go.
We are able to do something that is normally never done, which is to mix crowds in an organic way. You know, galleries have a certain type of crowd, and music festivals have a certain type of crowd.
Museum culture, gallery culture is in a way fairly isolated within our larger society, and so it's exciting for me to reach new audiences and have different people see the work.
And what's interesting is that since this type of art that's based on light and computation and interactivity is sort of an emerging field, we're giving these people an opportunity to get familiar with it and to then become curious about what else there is out there.
Technology, music, and visual things are merging quickly. I think that people enjoy the combination, and they enjoy going between these mediums. And I think in the future, there won't be a difference between them. And I think one of the things that makes this festival great also is that it puts them together.
A lot of digital art festival mix music and installations, art installation, but this festival in particular has like big headliners that bring different kind of people, and we felt like a lot of people were not really aware of what this light art is or digital art is, and looking at their reaction was really motivating because I think it felt pure. Today, it would be boring to dissociate music and art or music and visual, and I think it should be a new standard of festival.
A lot of the musicians who are here performing at Day for Night are some of my favorites. So being able to show alongside them is extraordinary for one.
And to be in a place which is really elevating, putting things side by side, that for me that's really beautiful. And that's a kind of special thing, and you don't see that. I haven't seen that in America at all. This kind of music festival with art, that's what is exciting about being in a space like this.
So you still dream about the Gesamtkunstwerk?
Well, yeah, I think, you know, to me, this is like a little bit of a hack. So essentially, how do you get people to discover and pay for new media arts that is done without necessarily knowing that you already have an audience, right? So in a sense, it's like we're using the fact that people will spend money to buy a ticket to go and see their favorite musician, and then you essentially serve them something that they weren't expecting. And in that sense, you create a curiosity and a desire to learn more, which, you know, I think it's great that we have places like RADAR and other festivals that are sort of focusing specifically on this kind of work. But in my experience, a great way to introduce people is also to sort of combine it with other things. And I think that's, in my mind, also a little bit of a future of, you know, what we call experiential works, is that, in a sense, when you walk into an event like a festival, you cross the gate and you are hyper-receptive. You know, you're sort of looking for the things that will stimulate you, that will interest you. So it creates a very interesting environment. And so just sort of, oh, sorry. Yeah, so just sort of in conclusion, I think the goal for me when we're talking about immersive art spaces is to try to think of ways to present art, to distribute art in a way that stretches what we think are the environments that art should be experienced in. You know, I think that there are many ways that we can do this today, and maybe we'll talk about it later, but I think Web3 mechanisms are going to be extremely important. I think it's going to be impossible to think in the next 10 years of a festival or an art event that does not incorporate in some shape or form a Web3 backbone. Because in a sense, I think also what's happening today is that the audiences that come to these things are going to start having a much more educated response to them. Like right now, we still see a lot of people who are like, whoa, great, a giant projection, and they've never seen it before. But imagine in a few years, everybody will have seen it, will have experienced it, the levels are gonna have to go up, and the audience will start understanding that there are mechanisms for them to feed back into the curatorial approaches. And if you want to create interesting curatorial approaches without the audience, I think it's going to become harder and harder. So that's where blockchain stuff, I think, is going to help a lot.
Thank you so much. You've touched most of our questions.
So we're done.
Ferdi already answered a lot of them, and Ezra as well. So we are pretty okay. Still, I have a curiosity. How difficult is to make your works travel? Like, are they built just for one place, or do you present them in several places? And this is a question for all of which, after the answers, I'd like to have a comment from each of you, because this is a really important thing which you also touched, like how ephemeral are those works. So how is in your case? Because somehow the success, for instance, of cinema is based on the fact that it's a format which works in every cinema hall, and for TV it's the same, like everybody can plug their...
Actually, there are too many challenges to build to that kind of spaces around the world. The challenge one, expensive. That's why you cannot see everywhere. The challenge, second challenge about every country has a different behavior. I mean, Chinese people or Middle East or European or American, every country has a different behavior for making that business.
In Romania, we will do a Sarmale immersive space. Sarmale.
Sarmale, yeah. You're right. So the another challenge is the content side. So if you want to build to that kind of immersive experiences, you have to face or you have to make the three line. The line one, good space. Line two, good marketing, and line three about the art content. If
just three.
Yeah.
So first is the space, second the marketing, and three the content.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All that holy triple, the spices, if come together, very nice. You can build very nice immersive experiences. But the thing is, if you compare with the cinema, and then the immersive experience is a totally different behavior, because still, as an immersive experience, you are not watching the movie. You are watching the art. So that's why this is different purposes according to the cinema theaters. Another thing is about one of your question. I think that there's so important. Why immersive experiences now rising? Because of the COVID. After the COVID, For example, we opened a new space in Bordeaux. They renovated the old submarine mission as an immersive experience area, and they opened exactly during the pandemic. Just 4 months, 400,000 people bought the tickets and experienced that. And at that time, too many people doesn't prefer the going to the cinema, because according to immersive experiences, so you can keep still your social distance also. So that's why, and then also for their mental health, it's so the positive things for the people, because people wants to the change to their daily life quality with the art. The immersive experience, one of the best options for that. I can tell like this and then
So instead of a walk in a park, a walk in an immersive space.
immersive experience. I prefer that.
I would like to add something. Actually, it's a storytelling. It's a very important point. People understand, and people first of all understand, then come and sell the ticket and buy the ticket, and then walking around the immersive spaces and leave the museum and tell the experiences for friends or families, and then come to the others. So it's a big challenge. It's selling the ticket. It's very important. Good content. We need it in the good content, but the marketing and the press release is very important for the Turkey. And I don't know the other countries, but yeah, because people live in social media, and just every day looking for the social media, and then the tickets, and then the buy and the tickets, and that's why PR and marketing is very important, and the experience is very important, because they want to walking around inside, but the immersive is not just in the physical area, it's also the VR and an AR and XR, the other technologies. We have to use the other technologies for the good experiences in the museums.
And so for each of those spaces, it's like a unique experience. You don't use the same experience in several places.
No, actually, we can say 60% around same, but 40% around content side different. Especially, we are preparing to do the new content especially for that step. Because, for example, Australian people really likes to seeing the pure abstraction of the art and really like it, but for example Berlin, no, maybe. So that's why you have to make the balance.
Before developing your content, do you do research on the specificity of an audience, or?
No, actually the best way when we open the immersive experience, first month looks like understanding the people behavior. So it means every time we are changing the content the first month. After the second month, actually, this is the perfection of the design. And after that, we are not changing anything. But for each city, generally, we are keeping to that attitude, because this is universal language. Yes, there are too many artistic decisions. Yes, but if you want to keep that business with your art, you have to make the little final touching according to the people reaction. So we can say it's a kind of the middle of the somewhere between the artistic decisions and entertainment purposes, making balance.
Mm-hmm.
You can say as an artist, I don't care. But if you want to keep that expensive business, if you want to touch too much people, you have to make your artistic decision also a little bit according to the audience reaction.
Mm-hmm. And generally, in a team working at such a big immersive experience, how many people do you have?
Approximately 25 people working as an in-house team in Istanbul. But according to the project, we really like to working with the real scientists.
Okay.
Because all that projects has the scientific background, and we really care about the making real. That's why we are making the collaboration with the CERN, NASA, or art science museums, or specific mentors for it. For example, for the CERN, we created a kind of the immersive art piece, which is now in the Brooklyn. We collaborated with the world best 16 machine learning professor in the world, and we got the data from the CERN, that data about the two subatomic particle collide movement, and we transformed that moment as a cinematic experience to the people. So as Ezra said, this is a definite storytelling. You know, not just a cool abstract animation. Behind that abstract animation, there is an idea, there's a statement, also there's an experiential process with the more than 30 people.
Okay.
Well, actually, sorry, another point is the exhibition name. It's very important. Parallel universe, it's good for us, but data monolith. What is the data? What is the monolith? Oh, okay. Change the name. In the Turkey case, it's very changeable, actually.
Yeah, definitely. So for you, Alex, how is it? It's mostly, when you are curating, it's mostly content which is developed specially for the festivals, new content, or do you also make content travel? And
It really, I think it depends on the type of event that it is, in part. But the thing that's really important in the type of environments that I work in, which are not sort of, let's say, made for one specific purpose. So, for example, if you work in a castle in Transylvania, it's an environment that was built for living, and it's now a ruin. So it's like it's not really a place has any particular design for new media or an old post office or something like that. So the word site-specific is extremely important. So the idea is that the artist will engage with an environment. If it's a new piece, they can conceive of it for the venue that they're making it in. And if it's an existing piece, they have to adapt it. If they don't adapt it, then you end up with something that looks like it could live anywhere, and it's not dialoguing with the actual venue. And to me, that's always a little bit sad when you see something that... So to answer your question about traveling, things can travel as long as they're adaptable and they can fit in different environments.
thank you so much. And if you would be saying, for you, beside the Web3, which you already talked about, which are the most interesting technologies or things to use now in works? Like, you told me about the Paparude thing, which really seemed like thrilling.
Well, that's a Web3 project. I'm happy to talk about it if you think it's interesting. Yeah, so there's a project that I'm working on now with an artist in France. It's called Paparuda, which I'm sure you guys know this word if you're from Romania or from this region. For those who are not, it's a term that represents a rain ritual where people will dance or pray for rain to come. And it stems from this performance that an artist did in 2011, where there was a cloud that was about to go from Canada to the US, and he threw some balloons in the air with some chemicals that made the cloud rain before it could cross the border. And you know, the FBI showed up and the Canadian police showed up, but there are no laws that tell you what to do with clouds. We've regulated rivers, we've regulated lakes, we've regulated the seas, but we have not regulated atmospheric water. And so they did not know what to do with him. However, he was clearly making a geopolitical message by saying, hey, if I can make this rain in Canada before it arrives in the US, I'm essentially favoring Canada. But who owns that cloud? That's it's a question. So, of course, he did it as an art performance. He made a film out of it. But this is an issue that's going to become more and more important in the future. If you look at it today, water is being traded on exchanges. You can buy shares in water as a commodity. It's steadily been going up for the last 10 years. And so what we did is we proposed to him to create a project where we would sell every day a cloud that is made from scientific data and represents a photorealistic cloud. So it could be a picture, but it's actually a 3D render. And if you buy this cloud in this auction mechanism, you are given access to a DAO. So for those of you who don't know what a DAO is, it's a decentralized autonomous organization. It's a concept that comes from the crypto field. It's basically like a company, but that is not registered in a given country because it can exist anywhere. And it has the ability to do financial transactions. And so the money that comes from the sale of these NFTs can be used to lobby international institutions for a legal status for clouds. It can also be used to create art projects that raise awareness around clouds as a future commodity. And then it sort of develops all these aspects where we're mixing art with community, with public goods, with finance. And in a sense, the project itself is almost like an art piece because it's like trying to engage with people on different levels. But if you think about it today, there are no other mechanisms where you can do that. It's like, if you want to contribute to something today, you can send some money to like the Red Cross or to an NGO, but you don't really get a chance to go and tell the Red Cross what they're going to do with your money. So this is a little bit of a new paradigm. This is kind of like a way I think that blockchain technology can help us do really interesting things. When it comes to like the immersive art worlds, I don't think that there is any real new technology. I think we're incrementing a lot. Like we have better sensors, better lasers, better projectors, better all kinds of different things, but I don't, better sound quality. People are always asking like, what's the next big thing, transparent screens and all kinds of things are going to come. I don't know, but I don't think there's anything right now that is like, oh yeah, this is the thing.
Like from your perspective, so I think this type of project you are telling us about, it's really giving an answer to the question. What's your perspective? Like your next projects, what you want to have them working with? There will be something after AI, something after heartbeat.
Actually, we are working the last 1.5 years around the one idea. We are getting to too many the invitation as a commission artwork from the governments, putting the permanent art pieces in the district or plaza or public spaces, right? And accessible for everyone. But their purpose is putting to something artistic, the installation. But according to our art pieces, we always put a kind of our obsessive decisions in the public spaces. But now we are thinking about if we can integrate some solutions about our planet problems, it might be a game-changing behavior. So the last 1.5 years, we are working with the different type of the engineers for the climate change things. So we will preparing to the new art piece, latest sculpture again, the permanent somewhere in the world. I won't tell you. But that sculpture, also the cleaning to the weather, the same time, trying to solving the carbon emission problem, but it's inside and hiding inside of the sculpture. Nobody knows that. So we trying to put into the new layers inside of our pipeline and increase our aim a little bit much more to protect the environment. This is our next level, by the way.
Thank you so much. You've answered to my last question.
Oh yeah.
Just because that was, and that's a topic I really think it's amazingly important. And in a previous discussion, we've been talking also a lot with Crystal Bauer about the responsibility of festivals, and especially I think of this kind of luxurious actually spaces which use a lot of power and a lot of electricity, and it's a huge responsibility for the festivals and for those spaces to be lighthouses not only in carbon emissions, but also in generating new practices. I was curious, Esra, about your curatorial approach. Is it oriented only on Turkish artists, or is it international at the museum?
Well, actually, we are starting to do Ferdi. The first exhibition is art, and the other one is the aquarium project. Is a sustainable project, a digital zoo. We produced the digital zoo with the Bilgi University under the 35 years young artists. And now this exhibition produced young people, Turkish young people, but the next year we will organize another festival also, X-Media Art Museum Festival. We collaborate with the foreign artists and the professions for the academic side. Especially our first topic is the academy, and the other one is the intellectual property right with the NFTs. And the other one is the gender equality. So we have to work with the foreigners and the international artists and the academicians. But this year we are focused on the Turkey side, and the next year, and we will invite the artists and the professionals.
Okay, thank you so much. And we're gonna soon open the floor for questions. And I'm curious, because from the discussion here, I think it emerged very strongly that somehow all this immersive art and new media art is based on a business model which is based on getting money from the audience for producing the artworks. And going back a little bit to what you are saying, Alex, somehow this really builds up this type of pressure of really needing to be the most outstanding, the most numbers of pixels, the most numbers of projectors. So do you think the field should continue like it is, its own, let's say, journey, or do you think we should have like public support, like a public immersive space would bring, let's say, more artistic quality, or will lessen the burden on marketing and all this stuff, or do you think it would be a bad move?
Actually, when we built to that museum, we are thinking about not just one behavior, like create the immersive experiences, just to create a kind of increase the community. Because that's we made the first the exhibition, but that was the starting to fire, because we really care about the making the cultural exchange, invite the other artists around the world, also festival, maybe the increase that networking area, also giving the opportunity the students, the art students, the putting to their ideas inside of the giant spaces, and this is the general attitude, and also giving the lectures, talks, and everything. So it's living space for that community. That's our main purpose. For sure, the main business running with the immersive experience, because of you have to sell the ticket for your expenses and everything. Especially in Turkey is a little bit difficult because of the currency, all that technical stuff you have to buy in euro and dollar, but you have to sell the ticket Turkish liras. So it means we are making to that the business not for money in Turkey, around the world, yes, but in Istanbul not. Our main purpose increase the community and sharing our ideas. I mean with the good people, with the good vibe, and that was our main purpose for that. Actually, maybe we can make the collaboration also RADAR. Maybe we can exchange our artists. Maybe Alex can come one day and visit. Maybe he can prepare something, or he can collaborate with us. So this is the infinite possibilities for us this is the just you know, the concrete walls, and it's not meaningful without the people and community. So that's why we trying to do just putting to the best technology for giving to the opportunity to people and community.
But the community is very small now in the Turkey. We have to educate to people, educate young people, and we will improve the community. We need a big community actually, but the community is very small, and the museum will improve the community actually.
Thank you.
Just one small thing is that I think what we haven't talked about, there's a fundamental difference between the art world in the classical sense and this new media world, is that it's almost impossible to buy a piece of new media art, right? It's like if you were a collector and you're like, I really love what Ouch is doing, what do you buy? The room, the projectors, the content? Like it's so essentially what you're trying to switch your model from buying physical things to essentially buying an experience, right? And so I think there's actually a gallery in New York called Pace Gallery, which is very well known because they represented artists from the light and space movements, like James Turrell and Robert Irwin, people who already at the time did these works like in the 60s that were based on light and space. And what they said at a certain moment is like, we see all this art, like people like Team Lab or artists like Studio Drifts, I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, and they're doing all these works that cannot be owned. So what they did is that they said, we're going to create our own entity. We still have our gallery where we sell these artworks, but then they created something called Super Blue, which is essentially their experience space. And so it's really interesting to see a classic arts world's giant take this proposition of, yes, we need to switch from ownership of an object to an experience which has to be paid for by a ticket, because they're experimenting with this model. I have no idea if they're profitable, because it's for them, it's like, it's a huge expense. They have to finance a big space, they have to sell tickets, they have to do all this marketing, they have to have staff, etc. But it is a problem in a way, because nobody really knows if this financial model is, there's no backing, there's no guarantee, there's no government behind that says, oh yeah, if you fail, I will give you couple of $1 million to make sure your institution doesn't close. So unfortunately, this kind of art still relies a lot on risk-taking from a financial perspective at sometimes very high levels, like millions of dollars for these things to exist. So you have to have people who believe in it, and then you have to build an audience which is in part the educational aspect as well. Like they have to encounter this work, they have to know it exists, so it's a process.
Yeah, so I think it's an amazing point what you've mentioned, and somehow it's really the argument why all those spaces are so successful, because somehow, of course, you don't necessarily now need to go to the cinema because you can have it at home at a pretty decent standard, but you can't have an immersive space at home, and definitely even if you would have an immersive space at home, you wouldn't have the guys to share it with. So somehow it's of course very important, and it's one of the things which, like you said, makes it worth to go out, let's say. And I think that's a very important quality of the immersive art, and it builds the so-called hype. It's based on this, basically. So I would open the floor for questions. If we have, you could address them. There are some mics in the hall. And thank you so much for all your... we have there a question. I think, when is the next project starting? So...
By the way, I can give today a couple of numbers after the Alex. For example, for the Poetic AI Paris, 1 million people experienced in 9 months with the tickets. So that ticket price was the 20 euro around, 30 euro around. So it means company made the 30 million euro in 9 months. But the thing is the investment for sure, because that's investment like 10 million euro around, including everything, projectors and rent the space. But there is no guarantee about the success story, right? So there's a risk. And if you are taking that risk, if you are making the investment, and if you believe that your idea, you can make it like this. For example, another number from the USA, just last year, 7 different company is running the Van Gogh exhibition. Just one of them, they sold out 7 million tickets with $30. So it means more than $200 million around gross. So it means actually this is the huge business, but the thing is about are they good spices come together for making that the huge immersive experience.
Thank you. Big numbers. I don't know if we can raise this amount of money in Bucharest if we pay.
Hello. Thank you for being here, and I would actually like to ask 2 questions, if I'm allowed. One would be like, I think more for Alex and would appeal to his philosophy for side, I guess, and the other more for Ferdi and Ezra. So Alex, I think now there's this confusion about like terms like NFT art and immersive spaces, which have come to define more the substance, and I see them more as like containers, and I was wondering how you feel about that, how the language limitations or the language around these things could evolve to separate the container more from the actual substance, the art itself. And for Ezra and Ferdi, I've noticed that like you guys work a lot with data sets, huge data sets, and this is like a tendency I've seen in a lot of immersive art, and it's beautiful, but also like there's like data in a lot of systems. There's complex data in like a boiling cup of water, or like a nest of bees, or the wind in the branches of a tree, etc. So I was wondering like how you interpret that data, and how do you add meaning to it, and how it's relevant for people in the sense that they like relate more to the data set, or understand more about the data set through the way you implement the visual and the sound and the immersive experience. Okay, so the language question, it's a really good question, and I you know, if you think about it today as a contemporary human being, the information intake is impossible to process. If anybody here can tell me that they spend their day going through their life and they can make sense of all the stuff that they took in from every single channel of communication that they're a part of, I would be very curious to have a conversation with you. Because, you know, like for example, this is really a funny example, but I was reading that now people are saying that it's really bad to use the thumbs up emoji. If you use the thumbs up emoji in communication, you're an old person. You don't get it. And actually some people will be offended if you do that. And I'm like, where did that come from? Like, what kind of subculture of a niche subculture decided that this was a thing, right? And in fact, right now, we live in this like architecture of a world that is full of tiny groups, and I think COVID definitely contributed to that, because we became 50% online people and 50% IRL people. And so we've basically developed this kind of relationship to words and to cultures that is like becoming completely disjointed, hard to understand. So putting a name on something is really difficult, and also getting consensus around the value of that name and you know, making sense. you know, I have like meetings with people where they tell me if anybody says the word immersive, I'm leaving the room. Like, people are so tired of this word. People hate the word experiential. Like, forget about the word fidgetal. Like, if somebody says fidgetal, like they'll puke. So it's like there are pockets where people they cannot take certain vocabulary because either they've heard it too much or they just don't like it. In other places, it's the only word that makes sense. So that's why, what I was saying about new media. I actually I tried to do a talk one day just to try to explain what new media means, because I find it very difficult to define, and I think it's fascinating in a way, but we just come to a consensus that new media, it's like democracy, it's the least worst system or least worst word. It has plenty of problems, but at least it's better than, I don't know, something else that would be even more terrible. So that's my answer.
Regarding the new media, sometimes I remember that I saw the term in an article saying, look, we are doing this study about using new media in classroom, and we've seen that the pupils learn a lot faster, and the article was from 1944. So yeah, of course, the new media, like terms of like words put it together, they are like like people that are thinking about those words put it together from a long time. But the coined term of nowadays, I agree with you that it somehow works better than numeric art or digital art, because it still works. It still, I think it works somehow better.
Just quickly to add something to that is, if you think about it, what does contemporary art mean? We've had contemporary art since what, the 40s? Something like that, even maybe earlier. So maybe even Duchamp was like contemporary art. So contemporary art doesn't mean anything, but there's no better term. Like, people have written books, entire books, to try to understand what does this mean, contemporary art. But we use it because there's nothing better to define this thing, and we've kind of all agreed that when we see some weird stack of toilet paper in a museum, it's contemporary art, right? Not to say that that's bad. I'd love to see a stack of toilet paper in a museum, but it's sort of like, it's something that our brain has understood, and we can assign this word to different things, and then we can have a conversation. And if I tell you contemporary art or new media, you probably know what I mean, kind of,
More questions? Oh, sorry.
But for the new media topic is very interesting. Definition to all that artworks under the one line, like a new media. I don't know, you realize also there are another community, no new media art, like this. So, I am not strictly choosing to the one word for the definition, because that area is so blurry and gray. There are too many parameters according to the artistic decisions, according to your exhibition place, according to the audience experience. So you cannot put the strict rules about that definition and terms. But generally, the new media, the people can, when you use that, people can realize this is a kind of the digital artwork and the multi-discipline, something like that's running in there. So that's I think a kind of the keyword, not the terms for me, by the way. For the data integration, we are getting to too many like that question about why data, why AI, why you're trying to integrate or something like that. So the thing is, I think this is our obsessive word, because we trying to transform to seen to unseen, unseen to seen, because of the numbers, represented that called numbers, different means for the different fields. If you are a scientist, this is totally the different means for you. But for our approach, the artistic view, it's very different. I can give to the one example for that. It was very nice. We got the invitation from the Chinese government, and they want to a kind of the permanent art piece for their new Silicon Valley. And we decided to use the Kepler telescope data set because we want to create a kind of the digital gate between our planet and the other habitable planets, but we don't have any idea about that data set. And that data set for the astrophysicists also, we don't know exactly that numbers represent what kind of the informations. And also we want to focus on the starlight, supernovas, and exoplanet data. But the Kepler recorded approximately 50 terabyte data per day for 9 years, more than 9 years. So that was the huge. And we decided to make the collaboration with the director of exactly that Kepler telescope project, the Dawn Gelino. She was amazing. That was the first time for her making the collaboration, making art, by the way. So during the 2 months, we educated each other. First of all, she teach us everything about that data sets and what is that meaning exoplanets. And then after that, also we teach her what kind of the data become art and what's the process for us. But I think there is a kind of the differences about the purpose, because we are not data visualization studio. We are using the data for the art, so it means we don't care about the scientific conclusions or something like that. We just focus on the another hated word, experiential techniques for our creative pipeline. So always we trying to putting to a kind of the playground and then making the game between the dimensions. For example, during to that process, when we got to all that data set, we transformed the data sets as a music notes. Then after that, every music notes we link to do some instruments, like a classical music instruments, like a piano, a cello. So all that universe starting making the symphony. Yeah, that was the shitty music, but when you understand that sounds coming from the planets, that's the different behavior for you, So according to your question, we are using the data because we want to see behind that numbers as an artistic way. That's the main reason. Thank you.
Questions? Please.
First of all, thank you very much. So you talked about artists following trends or listening to the general public so they can maybe deliver more acceptable works or works that can attract the public more. But and Alex talked, I think, something similar with the spectacle and art, and where do you kind of draw the line? So my first question is, are we sacrificing creativity by following these trends? Or does creativity maybe work better in kind of a set of restrictions?
That's a big question. Well, maybe I have an answer, but we can pass it to you after. But I think that there's always a problem for an artist to be catering to what they expect from an audience, because you'll never make everybody happy, right? If you're an artist who is coming from an original voice, right? Essentially, your voice has to find an audience. If you are building your voice so that the audience responds to it, then you're working on what I would call a commercial project, which, again, like what I said earlier, I don't think that everything has to be called art. I think that there are many creative avenues that are really important, but in my perspective, if I'm being asked by a client to design something that has a very specific purpose to attract a certain type of audience or to please a certain type of audience, then I'm thinking about it in a different way. I'm not really listening to my inner voice, because I know what I would do if I didn't care about the audience. And so I think the constraints that you want to apply to yourself as an artist are not the audience. They are limited to your creative process, But if you start thinking too much about what, it's the same as your personality, right? Like if you're too concerned about what other people think of you, you will never be you. You will be what you think other people want you to be, and that will always be a failure. You'll be miserable your whole life because you'll be like, I'm sort of constantly trying to adapt to this imaginary notion of what I think people would want me to be. So I think with art, it's the same thing. It's like the constraints have to come from your practice, from your tools, from your medium, from your conceptual approaches, but never from the reception. Like once it's made, you let it go. If it succeeds, it succeeds. If it doesn't succeed, then you keep going or you find another career. But it's sort of, that's where the critical moment is, the meeting point of the art and the audience.
I think this is about the purpose of the final artwork. As you said, there are too many the behaviors for commission artworks. Totally different word: commercial, commission, or the something like that. Art installations. So we are choosing to do different behaviors for that. For that immersive experiences, if you want to get the attention from the general audience, it's totally different. But if you want to be Stanley Kubrick at the immersive experiences, for sure we can create also, but it doesn't mean it's sustainable business. So that's why I think it might be both of them. For some projects you can keep to your artistic decisions strictly, you can keep it, but for that kind of the public projects, I think you should make the balance. And this is about the professionality, I think. Otherwise, you cannot move, right?
So a little bit of silence for this business to artist tension. A lot of nice examples coming from cinema. Orson Welles. So if we don't have other questions, I would somehow summarize. So yeah, somehow immersive spaces seem to be like really the big thing of the art world now. It's really, we could say, a strange sometimes form of art because it's using a lot of recycled materials, or it's very much based on VJing works done by others, which is again a very interesting perspective, and also you in your work you use so much images which are cultural icons, and this was, I think, never done before at such a scale. So somehow I think this is also a very important thing happening into the art world. Mainly the business model is a very strong business model based on marketing, paying the technology, paying the rent, paying huge collectives of artists, and we can't wait for the Orson Welles and Stanley Kubricks of immersive art, and I'm sure that they are about to come, and by the time immersive spaces will be maybe not in all the cities like cinemas, but definitely they will be growing. We will have also probably at the moment, like you say, governments are really interested about investing into such things. Of course, it would be really nice to see the Communist Party immersive experience. I think this will be very emotional and very strong and powerful. So it's just a strong tool. So politicians will definitely want to use it. And thank you so much for being here. I'm sure the guys will want to talk to you more and discuss your projects also, like on the corridors of RADAR, and hope to see Romanian artists in your curatorial programs and artists which you will probably bring into next editions of RADAR. Thank you so much for being here. And let's remember that exactly like you said, far the side of RADAR, which is dedicated to building community. So thank you so much for helping us building the immersive new media community in Romania. And thank you so much to all our audience, and thank you so much for being at the RADAR Festival.
Thank you.